Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone joining us from all around the world. Welcome to the second session of our webinar series, Transformative Approaches to Addressing Hate Speech Through Education. This initiative is brought to you by Arigato International, UNESCO, the King Hamad Global Center for Coexistence and Tolerance, and UPeace. My name is Noura Al-Mansouri, and I'm the Director of Coexistence at the King Hamad Global Center for Coexistence and Tolerance. I'm honored to serve you as your moderator today. In our first webinar, we explored the growing threats of hate speech and its impact, particularly on youth. Today, we move forward from understanding the problem to discovering practical, transformative solutions through education. We'll hear from speakers representing diverse fields, from policy and ethics education to filmmaking and youth advocacy. Together, we'll discuss how education can serve not just as a shield against hate, but as a bridge toward empathy, resilience, and coexistence. I would like to give the floor now to our chat moderator, Ms. Sandra, who will introduce herself and discuss the logistics of this webinar.
Thank you very much, Noura. I just wanted to quickly, I am the chat moderator. I will be in the backstage reviewing the chat, the question and answer channel. And I just wanted to let you know, to all our esteemed audience, that we have prepared some activities to make this webinar more interactive with you. So we will have 2 moments where we will invite you to share your main takeaways from the speaker's interventions. So when that happens, you will be able to contribute to a word cloud where you can share there your main takeaways. So we will post a link in the chat, and simply you need to click on this link and submit your response in 2-3 words. What is your main takeaway from what the speakers have just shared? And then we will be able to show a word cloud to everyone and share a bit of the comments of all the audience. I also invite you to use the question and answer feature, where you will be able to present questions directly to the speakers, and we will select some of those questions for our speakers to answer live. But our speakers are also able to see the questions in the question and answer channel, and they are also able to address some of those. And you are also very much welcome to use the chat feature, where you can also share your comments, recommendations, and we would love to hear where you come from and what is your area of expertise. So take a minute to share with us, where are you joining us from today, what is your area of expertise, and what brings you here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. We are pleased to begin today's session with opening remarks from King Hamad Global Center for Coexistence and Tolerance. While His Excellency Mr. Ali Abdullah Al-Aradi, Deputy Chairman of the Center, is unable to join us today, unfortunately, but we are delighted that Mr. Abdullah Al-Mannai, the Executive Director of the Center, will deliver the remarks on his behalf. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Al-Mannai, who will share reflections on the powerful role of education in advancing tolerance and countering hate speech. Mr. Al-Mannai, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much, Noura. Let me see. There you go. Thank you very much, Noura. Thank you very much, Sandra. Thank you, Arigato, and all of our partners. On behalf of His Excellency Ali Al-Aradi, our Deputy Chairman, I would like to give the following opening remarks. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here today for the second session in our series on countering hate speech. It's really encouraging to see such a diverse group of people in the room: educators, policymakers, youth advocates, and especially the young people joining us. Your presence says a lot about your commitment to tackling one of the most serious issues we're facing today. Each of you brings something important to this conversation: your experiences, your insights, your voices, and that's what makes this space so powerful. Before we dive in, I would like to take a moment to look back on our first session on June 18th. That conversation was emotional, honest, and eye-opening. We heard some incredible and brave voices, especially from young people, who shared what it's like to deal with hate speech in their everyday lives. Not as some far-off concept, but as something very real. Something that shows up in our schools, on social media, and in our communities. It leaves marks that we don't always see, but that are deeply felt. But even in the heaviness of those stories, there was a clear message. Understanding the challenges is just the first step. The next step is action. And that's what today is about. Today, we shift the narrative from talking about what to exploring the how. How do we move forward? How do we make change? And this is where education comes in, not just as a response to hate, but as a real tool for transformation. When done right, education opens minds, it builds empathy, it helps break down walls between people. But it only works if it's inclusive and if it gives every student the chance to see themselves reflected in what they learn and in who's teaching them. We need an education system that encourages critical thinking, that challenges stereotypes, gives young people the tools to engage with people different from themselves. These are not just skills for the classroom, they're life skills. And of course, we can't forget the role of adults, the role that adults play in all of this. Teachers, parents, mentors, community leaders. You all the spaces where these young people learn and grow. You help build the safety and support that they need to ask the tough questions, to stand up for themselves and for others. At the heart of it all is one key belief. Young people are not just learners, they are leaders. They're not waiting for change. They are ready to create it. Our job is to support and empower them in that journey. This work won't be done in one. That is why really important, and their continuity are just as important. Countering hate speech takes long-term effort, partnership, and persistence. But I truly believe that what we do here together can spark change that spreads far and wide. So as we start today's session, I invite you to really be here, engage, ask questions, share your thoughts, take something from this space and bring it back to your classrooms, your teams, your communities. Take the sessions that are available that Sandra talked about and utilize them in order to hear your reflections. So thank you to our speakers and to everyone who's part of this. Let's make today count, not just as attendees, but as collaborators in creating a world where every child feels safe, seen, and empowered to lead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. El-Menai, for your powerful words. I agree. Young people are not just learners, they are leaders, and our job is to lead them. And surely we will make today count. We now begin our first round of panelist interventions. We are honored to welcome two exceptional voices, Ms. Paula Araujo Alves from Auschwitz Institute in Brazil, and Mr. John Linus Otieno, Chairperson of the UNESCO Youth Forum in Kenya. Each panelist will speak for 6 minutes. Ms. Paula, you may begin.
Thank you so much, Nora. Good morning to everyone joining us today. It's a morning in Brazil, a very cold morning here in São Paulo. First of all, I'd like to thank all the organizers for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be part of this important conversation alongside with these amazing colleagues. So as Nora kindly introduced, I work for the Auschwitz Institute for the Prevention of Genocide and Mass Atrocities. And for those who are not familiar with the work that we do, we are an international organization committed to preventing violence in all forms. And with that, I bring my first key point. We do believe that we can prevent violence. And the project that I'm gonna talk a little bit today, Develop in Brazil, has helped us identify strategies to make that possible through education. So the initiative called Citizenship and Democracy in School began in 2016 through our educational policies program. This program works under the understanding that education is one of the most, if not the most effective tool to prevent violence. So we develop educational interventions with governments targeting students and teachers in different contexts. And that comes another important point. We take local context very seriously. Because when we are talking about preventing violence in Brazil, it's not the same as saying preventing violence, hate speech in Bosnia, for example. That's another place where we have a project. While there are common challenges, local circumstances and the action of local actors must be taken into consideration. We do believe this project should be locally driven. And that's why we started the project with a consultation process. So we didn't arrive here in Brazil and said, okay, this is the model, this is the way we should do. Instead, we invited students, teachers, civil society organizations, governmental representatives to think and reflect together. If you want to prevent violence in Brazil through education, what topics should we bring into the classroom? How to do it? So since the very beginning, this project is a result of a collective effort, and that makes a huge difference. So from this consultation process, we were able to create a methodology, which is an educational journey that teachers invite students to be part of in the classrooms. And this methodology was designed to be very dynamic, attractive, and to bring students to the center of the discussion. The language that we use is more appropriate for students from 14 until 18, which is our focus in Brazil. So the journey that we propose is divided in 2 stages. The first one is a more thematic one and is composed by 5 modules. So students during the modules are going to explore different topics. So they are going to start thinking, for example, about their own identity, but again, in a fun way. So they are going to be asked, who am I, my interests, my personality? And from that, they are going to reflect, okay, I am like that, but the other is the other. So how do I relate to difference? And that gives us space to discuss discrimination, prejudice, bias, conflict resolution, dialogue. So students are going to explore topics such as human rights, democracy, but again, not only the concept, so like what are the human rights, how they were created in 1948, but connecting that to their own reality is essential. So how do they experience human rights on a daily basis? Do they experience human rights on a daily basis? Same with democracy, not only understanding the democracy system, but democracy values. How important is to participate? How do we participate? So all these reflections are going to lead students to the second stage of the project, which is a more practical one. So they are going to develop projects in group to reflect, discuss one of the topics that they care more about, they're more interested. And that can be done in very different forms. We have students doing short movies, art exhibitions, podcasts, a community intervention. And this also usually brings the whole SKU community together. It's like translating all the learning that they have accessed, the reflections they have accessed during the first stage into a more concrete action, again, bringing them to the center of the discussion. So we systematize this methodology in this booklet, which is available on the website. I'm going to ask the team to send the link here in the chat. And besides that, we created training for the teachers so they feel more ready, prepared, confident to implement the project inside the classrooms. And through the partnership that we have with the local governments, so we have now 17 of the 27 states in Brazil with partnerships with the project. And through the partnership we have with the Ministry of Education, which is now offering the training in their own learning platform, we are able to train now so far 11,200 teachers, reaching an estimate of 340,000 students all over the country. So I try to give you a sense of how we work. I didn't have much of time, but I hope in my next intervention I can share a little bit of the results we have been, the project has been generating. Thank you so much, Nora.
Thank you so much, Ms. Paula, for those valuable insights and for sharing how national level education initiatives in Brazil are empowering young people to stand up against hate speech. Your work highlights the importance of institutional support and inclusive policies that foster active citizenship. Now I'm pleased to welcome Mr. John Linus Otieno, Chairperson of the UNESCO Youth Forum in Kenya. Mr. John, we look forward to hearing your perspective on the role of youth in addressing hate speech, especially through media literacy and digital engagement, and the floor is yours.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, young people who have joined us today, greetings. And I want to start by thank you so much to the organizers for inviting me on board. And I feel deeply honored to speak, not just for myself, but for many young people out there who may not have gotten the opportunity to be here, but still have dreams, ideas, and hope for a better world. I speak today not just as a panelist, but as a young leader who has walked this journey with fellow young people across Kenya and the world, listening, learning, and leading where I can. But let me start by saying hate is not born in us. It is taught. And like we can learn hate, we can unlearn it. So we can choose love, peace, and respect. And I want to quote this. For any development to happen, there must be love for ourselves, for our communities, and for our work. Let me give an example. For instance, in a classroom, when a teacher builds a positive relationship with a student, the student becomes motivated and ready to learn. In the same way, when we create a safe space and supportive spaces for young people, both online and offline, they grow and flourish like a well-cared fruit tree. But sadly, many generations before us in Africa and other parts of the world have struggled with hate, fueled by tribalism, inequalities, and ignorance. But we, I'm talking the youth of today, must excuse ourselves from this circle. We must rewrite the story. We must say no to toxic social norms and yes to unity, truth, and compassion. In our world today, social media plays a very powerful tool. Social media is very powerful. It connects us, informs us, but also, sadly, it can divide us. In Kenya and across Africa, we've seen how it can be used to spread hate speech, misinformation, and division. That is why media and information literacy has become such an important tool in my work as the chairperson for UNESCO Youth Forum and in the work of many of others. Through awareness forums, youth trainings, and community dialogues, we are teaching young people to think critically before they click, before they share content online, before they react. We are helping them to understand how to verify information, how to speak responsibly, and how to rise above negativity. And for this, I want to sincerely and boldly thank UNESCO and a number of partners supporting projects like Social Media for Peace, which have empowered many young people, many voices to stand against misinformation and to speak for the truth. As young people, I've seen a number of young people have joined. We have a responsibility. And the responsibility is not just to protect ourselves online, but to be part of the solution, to break the stereotypes, to build the bridges, to promote development through unity, to speak up, not just when it is easy, but especially when it is hard. Now more than ever, we need more partners, just like Arigato International, University of Peace, to support initiatives that gives young people hope. Because, why am I saying this? When we have hope, when youth have hope, they dream. And when they dream, they create. And when they create, they change the world. And I believe in the power of youth. And I want to confirm that the youths are very innovative. They can transform the today's challenges that we are facing today to be into solutions. They are solution providers. What most youth need right now is to invest. Invest in education, invest in us now more than ever. And I know that with all these organizations coming on board, the young people joining us today, we are gifted with different values, different ideas. If we share, we come together through education. I share my value, you bring your value, I learn from you, you learn from me, and we make sure that no young person is left behind. Lastly, I strongly believe that school and educators have a huge role to play. We need to go beyond textbook and exams. And I feel like teachers need to preach peace. Because peace is the foundation for every development. There is no development, be it economic development, be it social development in a community without peace. And also, let's teach empathy. Let us build classrooms where youth learn to lead with wisdom, reflect critically, and become resilient against lies and hate. The future we want starts with the mindset we plant today. And I believe that so if all of us plant the truth, the seeds of truth, kindness and courage, we are all going to have a better society. And it is not individual responsibility. It is our collective responsibility to learn, create safe spaces for young people, and more so invest in their education, investing in mindset, in a positive mindset, a mindset that leads to development. And with those many remarks, I know the time might have gone. I sincerely thank everyone who has created time to join this meeting. And I believe that from this is just a start of the conversation. We're going to come up with scalable, tangible projects that will bring positive impact to the future and make sure that no young person is left behind. And I'm privileged that I'm part of the solution to make sure that we live in a world where we all feel comfortable at, we all feel part of it, and we all feel that we can make a positive change. And thanks everyone. I'm delighted to join you. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to connect with us. Feel free to share best practices. And together we shall make a world conducive to live for all of us. Thanks very much. And I can't wait to learn more from you.
Thank you, Mr. John. Thank you both for those thought-provoking contributions. I think both of you carry a huge responsibility in giving young people hope, and I highly believe in the power of youth and the right education. I believe you are gifted with the right tools needed to reach your goals and milestones. Now, we'd love to hear from our audience. Please go to the Mentimeter link provided, found on the screen, or a link in the chat window, and share 2 or 3 words that stood out to you from the panelists' intervention. We'll give you a moment to reflect and respond. The word cloud would appear on the screen shortly.
Hi, Nora. This is the chat moderator. I am sharing the screen, but it seems like the audience is not able to see it.
I can see it.
We can see it.
Yeah, we can see
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just gonna give it another minute. All right. Thank you to everyone who participated. It's inspiring to see words like hope, empathy, education, and truth emerging so strongly in our collective reflection. These aren't just buzzwords, they are pillars of real change. Your responses show that we are all turned into the urgent need to equip young people not only with knowledge, but with the values and skills to challenge hate and build bridges. Let's carry these themes with us as we continue into the next part of our discussion. Let's now move into a short Q&A session. Please feel free to insert your questions in the chat. Okay. So I have a question from Indali Mulatto. It says, education programs need to be context-based. What kind of education program? Can any of the panelists who finds it comfortable to answer this question, or who has the knowledge to do so?
Sure, Nora. I saw this question, and I also saw the question of from Linus Gerald, and I think they connect to one another when we are thinking about context. That's why I emphasize in my short intervention the relevance of having co-creation in the project to understand. So the first thing is to understand what challenges are we facing here. So it's a context that was affected by a conflict, for example, that provokes they generate tensions among groups, for example. Where is the structure that we have in this context? Which are the actors involved in this? Do we have framework guidelines for the government to address? So this is something that we take very seriously in the project. But at the same time, for example, we notice in Brazil that we have problems with discrimination, lack of trust in democracy, for example. But at the same time, we do have guidelines and framework that it comes from the government to address those issues, but teachers didn't have the resource to implement, to address and talk and discuss this in the classroom. So it's also about identifying what are the needs in the context, so we can work together. But again, not only in provoking the understanding, the learning of what is democracy, but provoking the experience of democracy in school. So when we are talking about addressing hate speech in schools, it requires not only content, the concept, but transforming and changing the way people are relating to one another in those spaces. We have to create a sense of belonging in those spaces. And by that, we have to bring everyone together and to think collective and to bring this experience in the classroom, or, for example, in non-formal environments. So students, teachers, they have to feel they belong. They are co-creating the initiative. So we understand that's the only way that it's sustainable. So I think I try to answer both questions when we are talking about pluralism inside the classroom. So this is the experience that we want to promote in the schools in Brazil.
Thank you so much, Paula. I'm gonna ask another question addressed to John Linus, Mr. John. Young people are very digital savvy. How can we use this to get them engaged in addressing hate speech?
Yes, thanks very much. I'll start by saying that let me start. I saw one question in the chat, and I will just first respond it before responding to that one. What I can say first, education system that we need in the world right now is a system whereby, let me give an example of a tree, a fruit tree, whereby for you to have good fruit, quality fruits, the tree, the root must be well given fertilizer and all these resources that are required. And I mean, for us to have a very good education system grounded well with good policies, education system supported by having youth being supported from home. You know, before going to school, you have your parents, where parents also play a critical role in nurturing you. And for you to grow holistically, grow when you are full of your potential, you need support system that in school you have teachers who motivate you, teachers who make you think, make environment to be conducive, and also support system whereby we have education system that is affordable, education system that is favorable for you to come to your full potential. And to go to the other question is that right now we can say that youth have technology. We have technology with us. We also have social media with us. We have all these available resources that we have with us. How can we tap into this available technology, our available tools that we have on? What I believe in is one, we need to cultivate positive mindset. Positive mindset start from an individual perspective. If you believe that you want to be somebody or someone great in the society, maybe you have a mentor somewhere you're looking up to. And also as a person, what do you feed your mind? What kind of information do you feed your mind? But most importantly, we also acknowledge that there is power in guidance and mentorship. There are people who came before us. What we need from them is guidance to live respectfully with them. And I believe that respect is a two-way traffic. And I believe that if we young people, we respect those who came before us, we listen to them, and they will also listen to us. And also it depends with how we approach them as young people. So I believe with available tools that we have, the digital platforms that we have, the innovation that is there, we can all come together. That is where we have the organizations such as UNESCO, who capacity builds youth to critically think in a way that they know how to package information before they post online. They know how to know that this information is not a right information, is a misinformation. And I believe that with all these stakeholders, all the young people in this call, me and many other stakeholders on this call, I think we can have a program whereby, I know we can't empower everyone, but we start step by step. We say this year we have a target of making sure that this number of people are empowered. And this, I'm a beneficiary of ML, media information literacy. So how do we tell people that if you post something today which is right, it can haunt you in future? Because in a digital world where we live, some employers, when you apply for a job, they'll ask you to share your social media platforms, and they will check what you've been doing with your social media platforms. In doing that, they will see, are you able to embrace peace? Are you inciting people on social digital platforms? And that is just, I tap knowledge from you, you tap knowledge from me, and we grow together. And in idea sharing, I believe in idea sharing. So let me stop by there. I know time might have gone very much, but most importantly, young people need mentorship, and trust. If you trust in us, we'll make the world a better place. So trust us and invest in us now more than ever. That is what I will say for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. John. We have a lot of questions, interesting questions, but sadly, we are running out of time for the Q's and A's. But I'd like to focus on what Mr. John has said. Education starts at home, and support system at home is indeed very important. We need to also focus on that and educate parents on this point as well, alongside the schooling system. I would just like to remind everybody for the second round of questions and answers, if you could ask your questions in the Q&A channel rather than the chat, just so that we could keep the Q&As in one area to be able to answer them the correct way. Now we move to our second round of speakers who bring incredible perspective on ethics education, community dialogue, and storytelling as tools to challenge hate. Please welcome Ms. Eleonora Mora from Arigato International and Mr. Natan Servi from the Stand Up Project from the UK and Mr. Ojasawi Sharma, award-winning filmmaker from India. Each will have 6 minutes. Ms. Eleonora, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nora, and thank you everyone for the very valuable insights. I do hope also that we can really build something that is comprehensive together. And I read many of the reflections in the chat about when talking about hate speech, one should definitely start from the self. And I want to share that recently I was in a workshop about migration and inclusivity. And we asked ourselves if we were victim of hate speech. And my first reaction was actually to say no. But then I kept thinking about it and I realized that as a migrant for most of my life, I have had my fair share of prejudices and discrimination. And there is a continuum, of course, between these and hate speech. If I may reference a quote from pop culture that some of you might recognize, I would say that haters gonna hate, and I shake it off, I shake it off. And I believe this has been my reaction to prejudices and stereotypes for most of my life. Because shaking it off, it's kind of an individual response that can be seen as a way to escape or avoid hate speech simply by removing yourself from it, simply by shaking it off. This particular reaction, however, while it can help individuals cope with hate speech, it doesn't really break the cycle of hate speech and its capacity to destroy and dehumanize. And actually, in some cases, shaking it off can even contribute to deepen the structural inequalities and unequal power dynamics that often lead to hate speech. Elis Neridu, the former special advisor of the UN Secretary General on the Prevention of Genocide, that many of you, I'm sure, heard, once highlighted that genocide happens within community and genocide happens to you and to me. And this is why very much today I wanted to start with the self. Many of you also highlighted in the chat that, yes, education is a great opportunity to tackle hate speech and hatred and discrimination. Education starts with teachers as agents, and therefore we also must start with the self as teachers, confronting our own biases, because this is very much the departure point. Hate speech, prejudices, and discrimination are so entrenched that at all times we can all be victims, perpetrators, or bystanders, or we have been. And we have often been one of these roles without knowing and without intentionality. We know that hate speech is about the narratives that we pass on from one generation to the other. And in a recent reflection, I really asked myself, is hatred then hereditary? Not in the sense that it passes through our DNA, but in the sense that as we absorb in the environment we grow up and the stories we hear, we heard it from John. Children don't come into this world filled with prejudice, but they learn it, they absorb it somehow. And if they grow up hearing narratives that define us versus them, that teach the fear of the other, they build walls instead of bridges. And slowly they begin to internalize hate and dehumanize the other. So it very much starts with the self. But of course, and really John said it beautifully, as children learn hate, they cannot learn, but most importantly, they can learn empathy, understanding, and a sense of shared humanity. And I've seen already in the chat many beautiful examples of how you have been doing this in your communities. And the key is very much into building intentional educational approaches that can support teachers to address hate speech. Not as a response to hate, as we also heard it in the opening remarks, but as a key to transformation. And this is where ethics education comes in as a powerful and holistic approach that's addressing hate speech, particularly to help children and young people. Ethics education is grounded first and foremost into building positive relationships. It is grounded in interfaith, in intercultural, in sharing values and learning. And it's supported by a pedagogy that is transformative, that is experiential, and it is very much about going towards the other. Ethics education, it's an approach that enables children to make ethical decisions, but also to nurture their sense of belonging, their spirituality, and very much their capacity to be agents of transformation and to build peaceful communities. I think we heard it also from the speakers before, how it is important to very much provide these platforms for children and young people to become agents of transformations. So in terms of very concrete examples, ethics education helped bringing communities together, for instance, in Kenya, with the implementation in the Tana River County, where the very children and teachers who just a few years earlier struggled to even speak to one another, now came together at the initiative of the children that led very powerful and meaningful actions to celebrate, to be together, to acknowledge each other between the Pokomo and the Orma communities. But also in the very many recent stories, and I'm sure some of those stories are also here with us today from Bangladesh, Indonesia, Nepal, Mauritius, Kenya, and Seychelles, where the Ethics Education Fellowship Program, in collaboration with the Ministries of Education in these 6 countries, is very much contributing to address the root causes that lead to hate speech by fostering empathy, critical thinking, and supporting children and communities building bridges of trust across diverse communities. Creating spaces that very much look at a culture of encounter, that can foster the appreciation of diversity, that can help people see diversity as a richness, and that can break down the prejudices that fuel hate speech. But also, ethics education gives hope. And we actually saw in the word cloud that was beautifully presented how hope plays a very important role in tackling hate speech. And ethics education gives hope because it builds on the very agency of the children and very much their ability to be change makers, to lead actions. It builds also on the role that everyone can play so that no one feels powerless to address hate speech. The ethics education approach enables children to also develop narratives that speak of hope and of common humanity. And then, as it was highlighted, very often the very same means that are used to spread hate speech online as means of that, they can also be used as a force of peace, as a force to foster a sense of common humanity. And I think I actually wrote down how important it is to really look at the dreaming, the imagination, the creativity as very much positive forces. And ethics education supports children to be able to imagine relations with the other. And this sense of imagination supports children to envision inclusive communities and alternatives, peaceful alternatives to aggression and to hate. I think John highlighted, and I wrote it down, dream and create to change the world. And this is very much what ethics education helps children and young people to do, to dream and create, to leverage on the power of imagination, to look at different alternatives to build a different world together. Ethics education, of course, is also empowers teachers with very concrete tools. First of all, we start with the self, so to understand your own biases and to build peace within the self. But then teachers are also empowered to bring the contemporary issues to the classroom. And we had a context, we had a question about the importance of the context in educational approaches is to tackle hate speech. And this is very much what ethics education does. It helps teachers to have those sensitive conversations about contemporary issues, to transform stories of fears into opportunities for connection, and to create safe spaces for children to question critically the narratives that they have been given, to understand themselves, to understand the others, to explore what it means to live together, but also to explore what it means to be connected, to stay strong in your own identity while accepting and being open to the identity of others. children
Thank
learn
you
to
so
check.
much. I'm sorry, Miss Eleonora. We're running out of time. I would love to hear a lot from you, but perhaps maybe we can hear the rest of what you have to say at the closing remarks, because it's very important what you're saying. And I just want to thank you so much for your powerful and heartfelt remarks, and for reminding us all to shake it off when faced with hate. Your message truly resonated. And now let's hear from Mr. Nathan Servi from the Stand Up Project in the UK. Nathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on this panel. It's a real honor to join Arigato International and this incredible panel of speakers. My 6 minutes will be far more pragmatic than my colleagues on the panel. I will talk about a project that we have been running for a number of years. I work for a Jewish charity in the UK, and this Jewish charity has delivered contemporary anti-Semitism education to young Jewish people for over 20 years. So we have a huge amount of experience in the field of anti-Semitism education. And in 2016, we decided to create a new anti-discrimination project that would bring this education, as well as other, to British secondary schools, to mainstream schools. And this was within a panorama of rising polarization caused by a number of different world factors: the election of President Trump in the US, Brexit in the UK, and the rise of many far-right parties in Europe. The Stand Up Education Against Discrimination project was founded and began operating in British schools in 2017 with support from the British government and a number of local authorities. But what is the situation today? What is the problem that we are trying to tackle? The problem is that incidents of anti-Muslim hate and anti-Jewish hate are on a continuous rise. Since October 2023, anti-Jewish and anti-Muslim hate has persisted, and our partners, the Community Security Trust, recorded 3,500 anti-Semitic incidents only in 2024. And out of these, 260 affected British schools, young Jewish people, and young teachers. Tell Mama, the organization that records incidents of anti-Muslim hate, has recorded 6,300 cases of anti-Muslim hate in 2024, and 207 of these were school-related. Out of all religiously motivated hate crime in Britain, 38% affected Muslim communities, and 33% affected Jewish communities. And obviously, young people are at the center of this. We have a report from Hope Not Hate, another one of our partners, that says 11% of teachers have witnessed students displaying either anti-Semitic or anti-Muslim behavior. The Stand Up Education Against Discrimination project is particularly unique. It brings Jewish and Muslim educators into mainstream school classrooms to facilitate workshops that tackle anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim hate, and discrimination as a whole. We engage young people at 3 different stages throughout their career. At 13 years old, we deliver an anti-bullying workshop. At 15, we deliver a main anti-discrimination workshop. And at 17, we have a university preparation workshop on media propaganda and misinformation. We also offer teacher training workshops, and we also run a leadership and ambassadors program for 100 young people across 10 different schools in London. What are the project's aims? They are to assess, develop, and enhance students' understanding around issues of discrimination in a sensitive manner and through the framework of British values, to provide practical and responsible strategies to counter hate crime, including encouraging young people to report to a whole range of different agencies, and to develop young people understanding and confidence in their civic and social responsibility in wider society. And how do we achieve this? We achieve it by creating a safe space in the classroom, by using a range of informal methodologies, video testimonials, activities, games, so the young people can explore really difficult and complex topics whilst connecting with how discrimination affects them personally. The understanding that discrimination affects everyone, modeling an interfaith partnership with Jewish and Muslim facilitators that work together, who come into the classroom and introduce the two communities, their demography, their backgrounds, as well as their main customs and traditions. And then the facilitators highlight some of the main stereotypes that lead to discrimination against these communities. We use facts, figures, and we break down stereotypes. And we do so by showing historical manifestations as well as contemporary manifestations, enabling them to understand what the root of this hatred is, and the fact that this hatred is based on historical conspiracy theories very often that really require critical thinking to be debunked. We use cognitive dissonance to support each other, where Muslim facilitators might answer challenges on anti-Semitism and Jewish facilitators might answer challenges on anti-Muslim hate. The issue of the Middle East conflict, the conflict between Israel and Hamas, is sometimes central to incidents of anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hate in Britain and around the world. And in relation to the Middle Eastern conflict, we do not discuss the political aspects of the conflict. Instead, we discuss how the conflict affects the incidents of anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hate here in Britain. We support young people to learn how to be passionate about the cause that they choose without incurring in anti-Jewish or anti-Muslim language, specifically by developing critical thinking in regards to what they see online and the misinformation that surrounds them. We use the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism to support our discussions and inform what constitutes anti-Jewish hate. In the last academic year, the Stand Up Project worked in 78 schools and engaged over 18,500 students nationwide in the UK. And overall, the project since 2017 has engaged over 150,000 young people. And we monitor and evaluate our program with professionally designed surveys which describe the behavioral attitudes of students before and after taking part in our workshops. And to give you an example, we measure an awareness and concern for others scale and see an increase of 12% in young people's understanding and attitudes. We see a willingness to challenging prejudice behavior rise by 10%, and we see willingness to report hate crime both online and offline increase by 10%. Ultimately, and I'm going to conclude with this, our main aim is to teach young people how to report hate crime and where to report hate crime to the relevant agencies, and also and predominantly to inspire young people to become upstanders and not bystanders to hate, both in their communities and in society as a whole. Thank you very much for having me, and I'll be very happy to take some questions and be part of the second part of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Natan, for the practical and inspiring perspective. Up next, we welcome Mr. Ojaswi Sharma, filmmaker and advocate for social justice. Mr. Ojaswi, please go ahead.
Namaste and a very good evening to everyone, and thank you Arigato International for this profound opportunity, which truly gets me to the core of my work, and that is to make films and talk about these issues and bring it out to the public limelight. And from my perspective, storytelling is an incredibly potent and a strategic tool to expose the roots of the hate speech and address its harmful effects and harmful impact, while simultaneously challenging hateful narratives and building a greater understanding amongst people of all age groups, to be very specific here. As a filmmaker, I've grown to learn that cinema is far more than just entertainment, and it's a tool for social commentary, education, and fostering well-being, and for people of all generation, and whether it's targeted towards children or towards an elder age group which influence children. A unique aspect of filmmaking is that you can never truly predetermine your audience. So it's just like when people go and watch your film in cinema hall, so they bring their kids along or kids take their parents along. So once a film is released, it's reaching out to people of all ages and backgrounds, and that makes it truly universal. So this reach gives us a powerful platform, and with great power comes great responsibility. So growing up and while learning how to watch movies, that is the first thing we start from. We make movies, and we have learned, unfortunately, they have played a major role in promoting hate speech, and especially in strata amongst different people and different age group. You can see a lot of photographs of the screenings that we have done to reach out to schools, education, and students. And so we'll be showing a lot of photographs that have children, but not their faces because of privacy that we want to maintain. So it's now that as creators, we feel that we can use this very medium as cinema to do all the corrective measures that possibly we can. So my journey has been about using storytelling to touch upon conventional thinking and empowering everybody around us. So let me share a couple of examples from my own films. So the first is the film called Admitted. And our strategy was to directly challenge hateful narratives and deep-seated social biases surrounding the transgender community across India, and particularly in the Southeast Asian community. So by humanizing their stories and highlighting their fundamental rights and dignity, we aim to expose the roots of prejudice and educate audiences about their purposeful existence. We specifically showcase the landmark Supreme Court judgments and which recognized and gave rights to transgenders across India, to be very specific. So by weaving this legal milestone into a human story, we aim to educate the audiences on their rights to life, education, dignity, and social legal framework which supports them. Then the second and the most recent film which I work on is has I've been working on is called Rab Di Awaz, and it's available to watch on YouTube. So it's in English called The Voice of God. So this film was a strategic effort to counter harmful stereotypes and negative perceptions which often, are targeted towards persons with disability, and also to address stigma around depression. By focusing on themes like self-worth and celebrating multiple abilities, we aim to touch the mindsets, talk about it positively, demonstrating how an inclusive storytelling can actually bring smiles to people. And you start looking at everybody around on their positives. So you're not judging people on their negatives, but on their positives. And the film's impact was so significant that its citation was included in the policy for public exhibition feature films in Indian cinema halls by the Government of India, and directly demonstrating how a film can drive a policy change and ensure rightful representation of the acts that are given by the Constitution, and they are amended in a certain way. So our core message, which serves as an educational foundation against hate speech, is not about fostering indifferences. Instead, it is about profoundly respecting the differences that exist amongst us. And it's about embracing diversity in the global society, ensuring no one feels marginalized, left out, or targeted. Because we live in a global society, everybody interacts with each other, so nobody has actually the right to learn and to teach anybody to see each other on a downer side. One of the most rewarding aspects of filmmaking is the engagement with the audience that we actually get to do after our films. And these post-film discussions are actually the invaluable educational moments. They reveal mindsets and sometimes directly exposing the underlying biases or a lack of exposure then that can actually fuel the hateful narratives. It's actually through these dialogues we empower to contribute positively, adding a constructive thought and development as an antidote to the division and hate speech. It's not always about combating negativity with more negativity, often highlighting the positives and celebrating shared human values can do more good and justice. So, good stories and good films, we believe, when told authentically, are remembered for a very long time. Perhaps they are deeply relatable and nothing that seems a far-fetched dream. And in today's digital world, with films and so much of videos every day on the internet and all on Facebook, YouTube, and you name all the social media platforms, uh, they're readily available, and it's easier than ever for people to even share, discuss, or watch them or instantly, conveniently. However, this also underscores the critical need to promote a healthy dialogue. It's important to acknowledge that even criticism of cinema and movies can sometimes verge on hate speech, and if it's not constructive. Films hold immense power in sharing perceptions, and our responsibility as creators is to ensure that this power is used to uplift and unite and not divide. And I would like to thank all the other speakers for really giving me true insights, which I was actually able to incorporate right now in my addressed to all of you. We make films and we make them just through what we believe and what our heart feels actually. And if we are able to curtail all the hate growing across the world and just serve them positive side of the life, I think people can start looking at life more optimistically, more positively. And with all the optimism and positivity, I think we can minimize the percentage of hate speech that is growing across the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ajaswi, for showing how storytelling can be a powerful tool for empathy and change. Thank you to all our speakers for such a powerful contribution. Now, once again, we invite our audience to visit the Mentimeter link and share 2 or 3 keywords that resonate most with what you've just heard. Let's take a moment to see what messages will rise to the surface. We have a minute to do so. All right. Thank you for your responses. It's clear that the words like hope, action, education, responsibility, and film can create awareness and actually lots more. Spirituality are resonating strongly with all of us. These are not just concepts, they are strategies for building bridges in our classrooms and communities. Let's carry this energy into our next segment, a second segment of Q&A with our panelists. I'll be selecting a few of your questions from the Q&A channel for them to respond to. I just wanted to remind you, if you may kindly write your Q&As in the Q&A channel. All right, I can already see a few questions. So I have here a question addressed to Miss Eleonora. Let's see. It says, to make the youth or children more empathetic and resilient towards the individual differences and not be involved in any kind of discrimination, it is very important that the parent's role should also be clearly defined. What can I do as an educator to involve parents in my efforts to nurture life skills, which are important for making the children resilient citizen and the world a peaceful place to live in?
Thank you, Noura. And I promise I will be brief now and to the point. So what we often say as a part of the ethics education, and as I said, we very much, the foundation is the transformative pedagogy approach. And as a part of the approach, what we always say is the action element. So the pedagogy doesn't stop into the classroom, but it goes actually from the classroom to action to very much be be bringing a whole community approach, what we say in education. So very much engaging parents and the community. And to do so, what we do is that through the ethics education, we equip teachers to support children to do their own projects, their own child-led projects. So they are initiatives that are designed by the children. So the Tana River example that I mentioned, it was actually the children themselves asking to cross a bridge, you know, like a physical bridge to reach to the other community. In Bangladesh, during the Ethics Education Fellowship, it was children that went into children from most vulnerable communities to help with some of the needs. So, and it is through these initiatives that then also parents and other community members get very much engaged. So the invitation of ethics education is really that the classroom, it just becomes a lab. And then we really much move from classroom to action. And the invitation is very much to engage with the community in a whole community approach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Eleonora. Let me jump to the other question that's addressed to Mr. Nathan. The question says, how does your project address power imbalances and internalized racism within the communities, groups you work with?
Thank you, Nora, and thank you for the question. It's a really difficult question. That's all I can say. I guess there's a number of angles to this. I think the first part is focusing on young people is crucially important. Young people are developing their understanding of society, their understanding of prejudice as well. And so intervening from a very, very young age, talking about what affects them directly, such as bullying from others or social bullying, to making them really understand what forms discrimination can take and why is it damaging. So there is something about working with young people. There's a lot of conversation in the panel about working with teachers and enabling teachers to facilitate these conversations in the classroom. And that is absolutely a valid point and a very important point. I also do think, as many of the comments kind of shared, that unfortunately, oftentimes teachers also share problematic views in the classroom, and oftentimes teachers are not equipped with dealing with complex realities and complex issues of discrimination of all types. And why would anyone expect for a teacher of English or maths to be able to deal with these issues? There are a huge number of training programs in the UK that address and support teachers in this development. Getting to this question, it's a really complicated question. We absolutely understand that there is polarization within the communities that we work with, both within the Jewish community and the Muslim community. This polarization is given by a whole range of different emotional issues, cultural issues, issues of education. And actually what we try and do is we try and show a partnership and an ability to work with each other. And by creating that safe space, both in the classroom, but also within our team, within our facilitators, within our operators, creating a safe space that enables us to talk about our feelings, talk about what we believe in, why we believe those things, and actually have safe space conversations. We are absolutely not don't believe in having to convince somebody else of a different opinion. We definitely do believe that discriminatory language and actions should be challenged, must be reported, and must be tackled. But that does not mean that somebody can't have a conversation about difficult issues, such as, for example, the situation in the Middle East, which is incredibly hurtful for both communities for very different reasons, and therefore cause a huge amount of upset. So there is something about showing coexistence and collaboration. And also, I think one of the responses to the many questions that we've received is that we need to have more interfaith collaboration. We need to have communities coming together a lot more, and mostly at secondary school level, at primary school level. And so we need to have different communities that work together to understand that actually we're all human beings. We might think different things. We might have slightly different customs and traditions within our religions, but actually we are all human beings, and we should really aspire for peace and for coexistence and for working together. I think that kind of sums that very difficult question up.
Thank you so much, Nathan. I'm gonna have to step on the time limit that we have, and I want to ask one last question addressed to Mr. Ojaswi. Films are watched by families together. How can we use that to create integrational dialogue, and how can we educate our children from beginning on inclusion? You're muted.
Okay, so I think the dialogue begins from home. It's within the families, and whatever we're trying to create is more relational with how our characters on the screen appear and how much do they look relatable to the family audiences who are actually watching our films. So we try to incorporate such characters into our story writing. We try to make it more relatable, creating more characters which are relatable, age-based, gender-based, and disability-based, or try to make it a very inclusive world when we're talking about storytelling. I think films have a beautiful power that they can reach out to, they can break barriers of all levels of literacy. Even if you are not educated or you belong to any part of the world where you don't have access to education tools or the internet, we have taken our films out to them. So it's not just about families watching them. We have taken our films to schools, to colleges, to universities, to the villages, wherever there is not even a television or wherever there is no internet. We have shown our films there. So it's about doing that, our share of the effort. It's in today's time there is too much of an information overflow on the internet, that right now as an audience we are too confused on what to watch. So we seek recommendations, and for the recommendations we go to certain websites or certain blogs or certain rating websites where anything can be influenced. So wherever the audience is coming, the influence is bound to happen, because that is where you want to seek someone's time to watch your movie. And that is how we started doing this. If our films are not reaching the television screen, the smart television, or the theaters, we are taking our films to schools. We are taking our films to the target audiences where we feel that yes, people will give attention to it, they will learn out of it, and they will have a dialogue after that. And we just didn't stop there. We went out to speak to them. It's very rare that any filmmaker, any producer goes out to meet their audience. Normally, this thing is actually done through a press conference or using television as a medium, or a talk show as a medium, or a podcast as a medium. But a direct interaction with the audience, that doesn't happen. So we made sure that this dialogue happens, and we made sure that this happens for more than 600 days, and we were able to do it. So dialogue is the key. I don't think it's the dialogue on the screen that matter most, but it's the dialogue that happens after the film is over. That is where we really need to find our true victory. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And special thank you to the audience for also interacting in this segment. Now for our final segment, we'll invite each speaker to share a closing reflection. Each of you will have up to 3 minutes to share any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or any recommendation you'd like to leave with us, whether it's a key takeaway, a lesson learned, or simply a message of hope. This is your moment to inspire. Panelists, the floor is yours, starting with Miss Paula Araujo.
Thank you, Nora. Yes, I think I would like to say sometimes these discussions goes to a place that it's a beautiful idea, but does that work? And I wanted to share a little bit of the results that we have seen in the evaluation we conducted in 2022 in Brazil. It's not easy. I see many questions about how. It's not easy. It takes time. It's, like I said, a collective effort, but it does work. And as I said, we we have to focus on content, but also in changes of behavior, the way that we relate to one another in schools, how we create these relationships, how do we create safe space. So from the evaluation that we did in 2022 in some of the schools here in São Paulo, we compared students who were part of the project to some students who were not part of the project. And we saw like huge difference. First, regarding knowledge. So students knew more about democracy and human rights. Many of them were considering more democracy as the fairest form of government, which is not a small thing when we are dealing now with this lack of trust in democracy in everywhere. But also, and very important, youth, they were participating more in the classroom. They felt more motivated. The relationships between students and teachers were better. Teachers were feeling more confident and identify conflicts and mediating these conflicts. And students were feeling they were feeling more motivated to go to school because they felt they belonged, they had a voice. So I understand that school is very influenced by what is happening outside of school. So the problems we are talking here is not only in schools, but it's happening outside in our society. But school is also a place where we have the opportunity to create new words. So it's influenced by the word, but it's also, there is a word that is born inside the school. So that's my provocation here, that I know it takes time, it's not easy, but we can do that. And from this evaluation, another thing that I would like to comment, one recommendation that we notice is to include more and more the school administrators. So it's not only about teachers, it's bringing the whole community to this movement. So that makes sustainable, like I saw someone asking. So it's like bringing everyone together and thinking how we can create this whole environment more positive, more safe to youth, but not only youth, but also teachers and the whole school community. Thank you so much, Nora.
Thank you, Paula. Mr. John, please go ahead.
I want to start by thanking every young person who has created time to join this webinar. Personally, I've learned a lot from the speakers who have just shared insights, and I'm ready to leverage what I've learned here and share them into platforms where those who didn't get opportunity to learn can share them, can get them, I mean. So we are, as we are joined here, we are the truth bearers of today. And when youth rise with the right knowledge, unity, and compassion, I believe that it has no place to hide. And change becomes unstoppable. So I believe that with all these recommendations that we've gotten from other speakers, and also strengthen media information literacy, especially for young people to know how to stay relevant and how to be solution providers to the world. I believe all these things can be leveraged and youth will feel more empowered. And also to suggest on intergenerational dialogue, I feel like we all have knowledge, different wisdom, different ideas. If we have intergenerational dialogues between you young people, those who came before us, dialogue, not a debate, I feel like that will make more sense and youth will feel more empowered and they will learn from success stories, but not hate. And also, just my final remark, I'll request each one of us, maybe we can learn beyond this conversation. We connect, you share best practice. You can inquire if there's any available resources. And I'm here to say that UNESCO has a lot of invaluable resources. We have a lot of online platform, digital tools to learn from. We have a lot of spaces to learn from, and also we have a lot of learning opportunities. So each one of you, any person who might be interested, let's connect. Let's see how best to make the world a better place. I'm very happy and humbled to join you. Let me share my social media link. Maybe you can connect with me through LinkedIn. I'll share in the chat box. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. John. Miss Eleonora, please enlighten us with your final remarks.
Yes, again, I think I want to close with a reflection. I mean, I think in the last century, in the 20th century, somehow we brought education to humanity. We democratized the learning, right? And millions of children had access to education. I think what the challenge is for this century is to bring humanity to education. Because unless we do this, unless we refocus education on human dignity and on positive relations, we're not gonna make it for peace. You know, I think refocusing on humanity, refocusing on the positive connections is really the key to peace. If numeracy and literacy continue to be the cornerstone of learning, where are children and learners gonna learn how to really address hate speech? But then also let me one clarification, because I don't want my pop reference to be misunderstood. Shaking it off can be an individual technique. When you don't have anything else to cope with, that is what you can do. But as education systems, that's not what we have to nurture. We have to nurture more systematic responses that are really looking into building that positive relationship and those bridges with the others. We have to bring back the humanity into education. We cannot simply ignore the process. You know, that can be an individual coping strategy, but this cannot be how education systems respond. Education systems really need to integrate ethics and values into the teaching and learning if we are really to contribute to peaceful societies. And I think we have a challenge, yes, but we have an opportunities. We are many here today, and I think we can definitely do it. And children and young people are ready to really be the agents of this transformation. And I see many questions about the materials and availability. Everything will be available. We are here. And I think this is a beautiful movement of educators that can stand up to address hate speech, and let's continue to work together. Thank you, Nora.
Thank you so much, Ms. Eleonora. Mr. Nathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nora. I just dotted down some thoughts about this. I think we are in the UK, in the United Kingdom. I think I'm from Italy, so I know we're very fortunate in the UK that we've had subsequent governments and local authorities who have continuously supported work on tackling discrimination in British schools. I think that's really absolutely important. I think this work must be consistently funded and developed. And I would also say that our standard project would unlikely succeed or really be possible in most other countries. And this is because of demography, it's because of societal tensions, and also inter-community distrust. We believe that teaching young people from a very young age about the effects of discrimination and how it affects everyone is absolutely essential. We want to teach about different forms of discrimination and also be reassured of our own expertise, which comes from our communities and from our partners and very much from our research-informed materials. Discrimination has different roots and different stereotypes, but ultimately the outcomes on young people specifically are very, very similar, unfortunately. And we believe that youth empowerment happens through, for example, social action. So similarly to what some of my co-panelists have talked about, I mentioned earlier our ambassadors program, our ambassadors leadership program. We've been delivering it for 18 years, and we bring together 10 different schools of all faiths and none. And our ambassadors learn leadership and learn to get to know each other. They become friends, and they work together within their groups to plan, create, and execute social action, anti-discrimination community projects. And I would say that some forms of interfaith work sometimes are somewhat tokenistic, but actually these young people that work together for 8 months throughout the school year they learn together, they share, and they truly learn about each other's cultures and traditions, and learn to appreciate the differences, and that those differences are really a positive contribution to society. And we had our graduation for our leadership program just 2 weeks ago, and one of our school groups created a cookbook, and they used recipes from every other faith that was involved in the program. So they had Hindus and Sikhs and Muslims and Jews and people of no faith, and they had British recipes, And what they did is they published a book, they sold the book to then fund other projects on discrimination within their school and school communities. They researched meticulously what it means to have customs and traditions in relation to food and to the different religions that are involved. And to us, as the leaders of this program, this was an incredibly heartfelt moment, understanding that these young people decided to use food as often is done, but they really researched and really wanted to understand how to best contribute to the society and the community around them. So yes, this is really the message. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nathan. It's very interesting to mention the cookbook. I'll personally, I'd be very interested if you could share the link or the name of the book in the chat area. We could look it up. Mr. Ojaswi, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I would like to say that like colors, there are various shades of human emotions and various degrees of speech that can affect and impact people around us differently. So everything in the world cannot be black, it cannot be white, but there is an entire spectrum of how one can see comparative hate speech or elements of that floating around. So everything will exist, but it's about how much percentage of it can exist and how much percentage of it can actually affect us, and what can we do about it. So through our format of making movies, we will continue to do our best. So if people are getting exposed to hate speech through movies, we'll try to revert back through the same medium. We are not going to talk about it on a different format in news or on social media, but give back through the same format so that that format is justified and people learn from it and it is carried on through generations. So crucially, we need to equip also our students and everybody around us with media literacy tools to critically analyze the information, identify the misinformation, and recognize what forms hate speech and in different parts of the world. And sometimes it could be so relevant culturally, as we have all spoken, through different religion, through different forms of ideas. There are zillions of subject matters across the world which can be brought to focus through movies and can be taken outside the schools, outside the classrooms, inside the homes, on a similar simple cellular device or something like this, that anybody can watch and build positive perceptions based on that. I think we need experiential learning through art, especially movies, and where art is also served as a therapy, films can also serve as a therapy. Good films can evoke optimism in the hearts and minds of everyone. And hate basically thrives on dehumanization, and personal narratives are the most potent counter of it. And this is why connecting with audiences like we have been able to do after the screenings of all the movies, and if you go to any film festivals, is the engagement after that. And just like we have a Q&A session right now happening after our thoughts are put in, so there we engage with that, and that is where we are able to address any teething thoughts around hate speech or any teething thoughts about any malpractices in the society that can give birth to any form of prejudice. So I know these things can actually expose the roots of and we can collectively build a more empathetic space for everybody. I know nobody is born to propagate hate speech, but it's cultivated from the environment around us. And we are trying to reach out to thoughts which form the environment and try to cleanliness the environment around us or the global environment, and bring out stories that we actually want the world to move forward in that direction. So thank you everyone for giving me time to speak about it. I'll see you at the movies.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ojaswi. Thank you to each of our panelists for your wisdom, your passion, and your commitment. And a special thank you to Mr. Abdullah Al-Manai, Executive Director of King Hamad Global Center for Coexistence and Tolerance, for being with us today. Today, we've heard stories of courage, innovative educational approaches, and powerful narratives that are helping transform classrooms and communities. From hate to hope isn't just a theme, it's a path forward. And education remains one of our most powerful tools on that journey. We encourage you to stay connected, continue the conversation, and join us for the next webinar in the series which will take place in September and will focus on addressing online hate speech, one of the most pressing challenges of our time. On behalf of Arigato International, UNESCO, the King Hamad Global Center for Coexistence and Tolerance, and UPeace, thank you all for being with us.